7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Welcome back to Your Lake Fork Guide. Welcome back to another edition of the Guides Network. Although this one we're going to have to come up with a different name for, because this guy's not a guide.
Not a guide? It's all right, though.
Not a guide, but the reason I brought Zach on here, he's going to talk to you about a technique today. And honestly, out of everybody that I know, guides, tournament fishermen, anybody out there, he is the absolute best at this technique, including over myself. Today, we're going to talk about the Wacky Worm.
That's right. B-Law, who was it that got you on the Wacky Worm? Yeah, hey.
This guy. This
Sorry.
guy created a monster. So you guys stay tuned. We're going to give you all the full in-depth breakdown. We're going deeper than anybody else will, just like we always do right here on the Guides Network on the Your Lake Fork Guide channel.
Today we're going to talk about fishing a Wacky Worm. First thing I want to go over is a couple of misconceptions with the Wacky Worm. One of the biggest misconceptions you'll see with a little bit, I don't want to say non-experienced fishermen, but fishermen that don't fish the Wacky Worm enough, is that you have to have light line, light tackle, spinning rods, spinning reels, so on and so forth. That is just absolutely not true. I have fished a Wacky Worm for 15, 20 years, and I have never thrown a Wacky Worm on anything other than a bait cast setup. I like a 6'6" to 6'10" foot medium action fast tip rod. My reel of choice is a Curado 200. So even though I'm using a bait cast setup, Wacky worming is still a finesse technique. Okay, so I'm a big believer that I will only throw this on fluorocarbon line. Usually go with either 12 to 15 pound test fluorocarbon. It keeps it more of a finesse technique because of the way it falls with using that fluorocarbon, and the fact that the fish have that much harder of a time seeing the line. Now, there's my three main Wacky Worm baits are going to be the Zoom trick worm in a variation of colors, watermelon red, watermelon candy, watermelon magic. Those are probably my three favorites. I'll also Wacky Worm a stick bait. There's a variety of stick baits out there. I like the smash stick. I actually caught the second biggest fish I ever caught in my life on the smash stick rigged Wacky. Old B-Law, your Lake Fork Guide, happened to be in the cove I was fishing, and we actually got a clip of it right here, so take a look.
Zach, what'd you catch?
Caught a bait. 23 and a half.
A 10 pounder that's in the slot. That's a slot fish 10 pounder.
Billy, what does that mean?
24 inches. It has to be over 24 inches to keep in a tournament or something.
Yeah.
And it's 16 to 24 you can't keep. So 23 and a half, that would break your heart in a tournament, bro.
Now, last but not least, my third favorite option for Wacky rigging is the LFT ring fry. Very versatile bait. What I want to talk about now is how do we rig this? Well, let me tell you about the hook I'm using. I use the Gamakatsu Finesse wide gap weedless hook right there in 1/0. Now, you're going to go to the store and you're going to look at this hook and you're going to say, you expect me to catch, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 pound bass on this hook? Yes, that's exactly right. There's a plenty of other hooks on the market. I've read different reviews on this hook and that hook and people saying, oh, I like this one. By far, I will fish this hook over any hook on the market if I'm fishing a wacky worm. Now, the way we like to rig this bait is just simply on the Zoom trick worm. You'll see that little fat hump there in the middle of it. I like to go about 3 rings back and just hook it right through the center there to where it's, hanging off in the upright position. Now, it doesn't stop there. One thing that I didn't mention is that I never fish a wacky worm weightless. Okay, even if there's dead calm wind and I'm fishing 2 foot of water, I've always got a weight in the head of this hook. Now, what I use for that are these Lunker City nail weights. They are very, very easy to manipulate, and what I mean by that is if I am fishing less than 10 foot of water, here's that Lunker City nail weight. I'll use half of this weight right here. And the way this Lunker City nail weight is designed, you see the ridges there. Well, those ridges provide 2 benefits. One, it won't allow the nail weight to slide out of the head of the worm on your cast or hook sets. Also, you can simply just bend it back and forth and it'll break in half just like that, just that simple. And what we'll do is we'll grab this half a nail weight here, just slide it right down in there into the head of the worm, right there, and there we go. Now, the benefit to this is when you are working this worm through some grass or around a bush, this worm is still going to fall very slow, but it's going to fall head first. When it hits the bottom, it's not going to immediately just lay down. It's going to stay up there a minute and give that fish a chance to suck it up. All right, where do we want to fish a wacky worm? Well, I personally will fish a wacky worm anywhere, anytime, any water depth. Now, I mentioned earlier that we only use the half the nail weight when we're fishing the shallower water. If I'm fishing water greater than 10 feet, I'll go ahead and use that whole Lunker City nail weight. It just helps it get down in that deeper water. Now, as far as spots, I like to concentrate on grass, whether it be hydrilla, coontail, duckweed. Duckweed's a little bit tougher to fish. You just gotta you find the holes in the duckweed and flip over into them holes. It's almost like punching, except you're not punching through. You're just landing it in a hole in the middle of the duckweed. Other than those concentrated grass flats, I mean honestly, like I said, I'll fish a wacky worm anywhere. I'll flip stumps with it. I'll cast it in the middle of a bush. I will fish a main lake point with a wacky worm. Okay, 17, 20, 25 foot of water. I'll use that entire Lunker City nail weight. You just have to be a little bit more patient to let it get down to the bottom. Once it's down to the bottom, you just work it like you normally would. Okay, there's really never a wrong time to throw a wacky worm. I've caught them in the spring. I've caught them in the post spawn. I've caught them in the summer. I've caught them in the winter. I mean, really, it literally is the best bite getting bait you can have in your boat. Now, that brings me to the second misconception I want to talk about, is that wacky worm is a small fish bait. Are you going to catch small fish on it? Of course. Okay, but I'll catch small fish on a big crankbait as well. The two biggest bass I've ever caught in my life have been on a wacky worm. That's an 11-4 and a 10 pounder. Okay, so don't get caught up in the trap of, oh yeah, you're throwing wacky worms, you're going to catch, a bunch of pound and a half, 2 pound fish. Yeah, you are going to catch a bunch of pound and a half or 2 pound fish. Then you're going to hook into that 4, that 7, that 9. They'll eat it just like any other fish will eat it. Okay, so don't believe those misconceptions. It will catch any size fish in the lake. All right, so now let's sling it out there a few times, and let me talk about how I feel comfortable retrieving this bait. There's a bunch of different ways you can get a wacky worm out there. You can sling it out there, you can pitch it out there, or depending on your experience level, if you're trying to to hit the base of a stump or a hole in some duckweed, you can certainly flip it out there. There is plenty of weight on a wacky worm. Look at that.
It catches a lot of fish too, doesn't it, ZW?
Like I said, man, it is the, you got me hung up around that stick. It is the best bite getter out there.
Get him off that log.
Yep.
Look, you got her line right around his gill. Look how he ate it. Let's go.
Hey, you think they don't like that wacky worm, baby? They will get it all the way in there.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
That couldn't have happened any better, could it?
That's funny.
Thank you. Now look, let me show you what my worm looks after that fish catch, okay? It's a little bit wallered out in there where I had the hook through. Great thing about a wacky worm, you can pull that hook back through there, okay? And then you know, you don't have to get a brand new worm. Just simply move your hook up a little bit, hook it back.
So you just move that down the worm, right? Let's see, where's the damaged part?
Damaged part's
Damaged
just
part's right back
right
here.
there.
And then we just moved it up the worm.
I just moved it up 1/4 of an inch. Now there's a bunch of different ways to fish the wacky worm. Again, I'm fishing grass right here. I've got a lot of coontail growing up just under the water surface here. I got some duckweed going down the sides. So, you know, I can either throw it out in that grass flat or I can look for holes in the duckweed. If I was gonna flip a hole in the duckweed, I would try to actually land this bait about 6 inches past the hole and slowly drag it back and let it fall in that hole in the duckweed. And then once the bait gets down to the bottom, okay, cast it out there, give it a good 3 or 4 count, depending on the depth of water you're fishing. What I like to do is just reel the slack up, okay, to where it's not quite taut, but almost, and I just give it a good 2 or 3 pops right there. What that bait's doing is it's coming up like this and then slowly falling back down to the bottom head first, okay? Same thing, boom, 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 okay? Now, one thing you really need to pay attention to when you are wacky worm fishing is that, you know, you're not always gonna feel the bites. A lot of times, right before you give it that good 2 or 3 pops, when you reel in that slack, you'll feel some tension on that line, okay? Just give it a little bit of tension and you can feel that fish pulling back, or you can see your line running right or left, okay? Once that happens, you lean into that sucker as hard as you can.
Talk about the hook set a little bit. How do you set the hook on these fish? I mean, I know you drill them pretty good, but that probably has a lot to do with the fact that you're fishing that medium action rod. That allows you with that small hook to go ahead and set it like a Texas rig, maybe?
That's right, that's right. So, you know, when I know that there's a fish on, I see my line running, or I feel that fish pulling back, I like to do a hook set straight up, okay? Because, you know, we showed you the hook earlier. It is a very small Gamakatsu Finesse Weedless hook, but when you set that hook straight up, it pulls it straight up into the top of their mouth.
And you're jerking pretty hard. You're not holding back.
I'm trying to rip his face off.
You lay the steel, and that's the reason you're allowed to do that is because of the rod, right?
Because of the medium action rod. That's right. Now, there's 2 reasons I prefer a medium action rod. One, it's got plenty of flex in it, which will allow me, okay, to really reach back and not necessarily use the power of the throw, okay? So I'm not really using the power of the cast. I'm using the flex in the rod to whip that bait out there. You know, I mean, heck, with a wacky worm, that's what, 60, 70 foot out there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's plenty. A lot of times, I just did that for an example. A lot of times I won't cast that far because I've got the medium action rod. I like for it to be a little bit closer, so when I do need to set the hook, you know, I have plenty of backbone here with this medium action rod to set that hook. Notice I've casted it out there. My bait has settled on the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna reel up my slack, but I feel a little tension. I'm gonna pull just a little bit more tension. Okay, I don't feel anything pulling back. I don't see my line running right or left, so I know I'm on grass. So I just give it a good pop, and it pops free of that grass, and then it comes on down head first. Okay, so you know, like I said, just because you feel tension on your line that does not mean a fish is on there. We're fishing grass. We expect this bait to come up against that grass stalk like this, okay? And then once you pop it, it and comes off of that grass stalk like that. There it is again, another piece of grass, okay? As you can see, I've got enough tension on it to where my rod is bent just a little bit, so I know there's not a fish pulling back. I don't see my line running sideways, so I give it another pop, it pops right on free. That's the benefit to having that Gamakatsu Weedless Finesse wide gap.
There you go. Hey, that's a full breakdown. That's in depth right there.
That is in depth as I can make it.
That is a full breakdown on the Wacky Worm, and I'm going to tell you what, he may not be a guide, but he is absolutely an expert when it comes to that Wacky Worm. I've witnessed it firsthand time and time again. Zach's one of my best friends in the world, and we spend a lot of time on both together, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, don't get discouraged. You know, it takes time, it takes patience. You're not going to go out there and just be a master Wacky Worm fisherman your first couple of times out. Heck, I used to run B-Law all up and down this boat because I'd be hammering fish on Wacky Worm and he'd still be trying to figure it out. Hey, you will get it. Just don't give up.
Yep, it's a great bait. It's a great bait for beginners. It's a great bait for kids, for women, anybody new to the sport, just because it just gets, once they get that feel of it, it gets so many bites. And you know, tough conditions. I don't know if it was tough conditions or if we were fishing wrong or what it was. Either way, we were having a tough day. We're having a tough day on this trip, and lo and behold, what catches the biggest fish? The Wacky
Worm.
Man, I've seen it happen so many times, and I've seen this guy catch some giants. I mean, trophy fish on it. So, learn this technique. Days when you're struggling, when it's tough, put it in your hands and try and figure it out. All you new fishermen out there, put it in your hands religiously. I promise you'll catch more fish with it. And I guess that's about it, ain't it?
Yep. Thanks for letting me come on and talk about Wacky Worm fishing a little bit.
Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah,
man.
buddy. No problem.
All right, guys. Well, that's what we do here at the Guides Network. He may not be a guide, but we're going to bring experts. And in springtime, it's a little bit tough. But as we get back into summer, we're going to try and bring more guys back on here to get you the biggest wealth of knowledge you can find anywhere in the world as far as fishing information goes. And we will always go in depth like we always do here on YourLakeForkGuide. Appreciate you guys watching. Hope you liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you want to see some more, be sure and subscribe. It'll notify you every time we do a new one. And we will see you next time right here
on Your Lake Fork Guide. Good fish. Lake Fork, Texas, baby. The old smash stick does it again.
Momentum going, baby. Come on! Smash stick is getting after him, boy. I was quick bait's mad at him this morning.
I'll tell you what, he's got a win on this bait. Come on,
hey. That might be the biggest one yet. Little chunky monkey right there, boys and girls. A little fatty. Dude! Dude, not shut out, baby.
Well, somebody has just taken the lead in the Big Fish Steal Yo Bait Challenge. ZW is not shut out. Good point. Good job, brother. I'd like to dedicate this catch to all of our boys in blue out there.